In this video, we're going to look at topic 78, example 2, multiply polynomials. So we're asked, how do you multiply polynomials? And we're given two examples. This is a series of distribution, so you're probably pretty familiar with at least part of this process. You just have to make sure you're careful with your multiplying your bases, your signs, and your exponents. So let's start with part A. This 2m, we want to distribute that 2m to each of these terms in our trinomial. So we'd have 2m times 3m squared. Multiply the coefficients, so 2 times 3 would be 6. And then m times m squared. What we want to do is we want to add the exponents. So that first m has a 1. The second one is m squared, so that's going to be 6m cubed. Then we're going to do 2m times negative 4m, so just continue the distribution. So the coefficients, 2 times negative 4 would be negative 8. And then we're going to have m squared. Because m to the first, m to the first. Again, when you're multiplying the bases, you add the exponents. And then finally, 2m times 2, that would be 4m. All right, so that's for our first group. Next, we're going to take the 5 and distribute the 5 in the same manner. 5 will be easier because we don't have to worry about adding any exponents because 5 is a constant. So we would start with 15m squared, negative 20m, and a positive 10. All right, and the only thing you need to do from here is you need to check for like terms and see if you can combine anything. In this case, the 6m cubed has no like terms, so we just bring that. The negative 8m squared does have a like term, so we want to combine those. So negative 8 plus 15 would give us a positive 7m squared. Positive 4m and negative 20m are like terms. So that's going to be negative 16m, 4 minus 20. And then finally, we can bring down that positive 10. Positive 10, there's no like term with it. Let me just highlight all this so we know where everything came from. And that's our final answer. All right, it's in standard form, it's in decreasing order of exponents, and there's no other like terms that we've combined, so we can stop there. In part B, we have 3 different terms. All right, so we have 3 different binomials. So what you want to do is just pretend that one of them doesn't exist. So you would pretend that that one's not there. Do the same process that we did in part A with the first 2 binomials, and then you would multiply by the third binomial afterwards. So I'm going to start by multiplying these 2 terms here. mn times mn, right, we're adding the exponents, so this would become m squared, n squared. And then mn times negative 2 is negative 2 mn. I would then distribute the 1. So I would have a positive mn. I can write 1 mn if I want, but I don't really need to. And then 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. All right, we do want to put this in parentheses, and you do want to remember to carry the third binomial down the entire time. We don't want to forget about that. Before I distribute again, I would look to combine like terms and simplify this if possible. So here, the m squared, n squared doesn't have anything similar, but these 2 middle terms are like terms. So negative 2 plus 1, right, I'm going to think of this as a 1 here. That's going to be negative mn, and then that minus 2 would come along. And then we'd have that. So now from here, we do, again, the same thing that we did in part A. It's a series of distribution. So you can distribute left or right, however you want to look at it, but just make sure you multiply all your terms. So I'm going to take this m squared, n squared, and distribute it to each of those. So m squared, n squared times mn, add the exponents. So we get m cubed, n cubed. m squared, n squared times 4 will just be positive 4 m squared, n squared. I would then take my next term, the negative mn, and I'm going to distribute that. So negative mn times mn is negative m squared, n squared. And then negative mn times 4 will be negative 4 mn. And finally, we want to distribute this negative 2. So we would have negative 2 mn minus 8. Okay. And then your final step from here is just to combine like terms. All right, you always want to check like terms before you move on. So m cubed, n cubed, there's nothing else to the power of 3, so that's just going to drop down. I do have 4m m squared n squared and negative m squared n squared, so those are like terms. So that'll be 4 minus 1, which is just a positive 3 m squared n squared. Keep in mind when you're adding or subtracting, or you're combining those like terms, the exponents do not change. When we were multiplying, we did have to do something with the exponents. The negative 4mn and the minus 2mn are like terms, so we're going to combine those. So minus 6mn. Again, don't change the exponents, just change the bases. Let me highlight these so we know where these numbers are coming from. And then finally, we'll just bring down that minus 8 because it has no other like terms. All right, so we're left with m cubed n cubed plus 3m squared n squared minus 6mn minus 8. They are in decreasing order, so I have it in standard form. So I am all done with that problem. So for the previous video with adding and subtracting, and in this video with multiplying, the process is pretty straightforward. Really, the only mistakes are rushing through problems or just trying to skip steps. So take your time, be careful with your signs, be careful with your exponents, and you should have no issues with these.